who is a prospective voice, who is the next generation to speak to that MAGA movement? Well, the former president answered that quite clearly this afternoon by naming JD Vance as his running mate. It also helps enormously that he is geographically aligned with the most important place for the Trump campaign to look for states to take away from President Joe Biden, specifically Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and to keep the solid Republican base in the state of Ohio.
Trump's decision to choose Senator JD Vance as his running mate gives us a little more insight on how he plans to win the presidential race and how he's tapping into economic populism and appealing to Rust Belt voters in order to become the winner of this race. Now, while Vance is deeply conservative on social issues, he actually has a bit of a mixed record in the Senate. Now, remember, he was elected in 2022, so he has a very short record in the Senate. But I do think there are some areas that are fascinating in regard to where he was willing to work on bipartisan legislation. And usually it had to do with some economic issues. Here's more from CBS.
In general, Vance is with the former president on cutting regulations, but there's an area of emphasis that JD Vance has brought to his conversation in the Senate about antitrust matters. And he's there aligned himself with some progressive Democrats about taking a more skeptical view of the market share and the power and the clout of large tech firms. Former President Trump has been much more shy about doing that. And I know from the Trump campaign, they view JD Vance as an entry point to the tech world, not only in terms of support, but financial backing. How that plays out will be interesting in the future.
So one of the things that I actually learned about JD Vance fairly recently is that he's a big fan of Lina Khan, who is the current head of the FTC. Lina Khan is incredibly aggressive in regard to enforcing antitrust laws. And so that was really surprising to me. But Cenk, you actually had some fascinating insight into why that might be. Because remember, JD Vance graduated from Yale, made a lot of money as an investor in, I believe, Silicon Valley, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Silicon Valley has made a pretty big investment in him, Peter Thiel being the prime example. He has helped fund both his Senate race and also this current Trump race. And so what are your thoughts?
Thanks for watching. Our audience has helped build TYT into the media giant it is today. Together, we can accomplish anything. Support our work and join us at tyt.com/team.
So JD Vance is a really interesting, complicated guy, and I want to tell you about in a second the parts of his populism that's a little bit real that Anna alluded to, potentially, but how a lot of it could be just fake populism. So first, in terms of what Anna's talking about in Silicon Valley, the people who made money off of Facebook, Google, etc., made that money a long time ago. That all those shares have vested. And what that means is they've already realized those gains. They already have that money. So they're not worried about protecting Google or Facebook. So for the great majority of them, obviously Zuckerberg and the owners, the original founders of Google are, but the guys who invested like Peter Thiel, et cetera, are not. In fact, those guys have now turned around and invested in a lot of competitors, including JD Vance, who owns a part of Rumble. Rumble is a direct competitor to YouTube, which is part of Google. So JD Vance is now conveniently saying, oh yeah, I agree with progressives sometimes. I'm an economic populist. I think we should break up monopolies. Which ones? The big oil companies, the banks? I said, nah, the tech companies that me and my donors are competing against. Well, then I'm a lot more skeptical.
Yeah, so I mean, it depends. Are antitrust laws going to be enforced equally or enforced in very specific areas or sectors of the economy?
But remember, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
you're right. So within Silicon Valley, the antitrust laws would only apply to the giants, right? So if you invested in new companies like Peter Thiel, JD Vance, David Sachs, and all these other guys, then when those companies are broken up, your companies are strengthened and their value goes way up. So they instantly make a lot more money the minute those companies are broken up because its potential value will be factored in immediately, right? Let alone whether they realize that value later, but they could get their money out. They could sell their companies at any moment. So that's just a giant treasure chest for them.
Yeah.
Now, if JD Vance was honest, to Anna's point, and said, all right, look, I'm also looking into monopolies in other areas, and actually enthusiastically followed through on that, I'd say, okay, well, now I'm beginning to believe that he actually does worry about monopoly power, which is a real threat to free markets. Because if you believe in free markets and you believe in capitalism, you would know, any elementary person that has studied this, and he went to Yale Law, so it's not like he doesn't know, right? Knows that monopolies are actually a threat to the free market and capitalism. But I need to see some sort of consistency first and not just taking out his competitors.
Now, I also want to talk a little bit about what he was working on with Senator Elizabeth Warren, who of course is a more progressive senator in the Senate. Vance apparently worked with her to push for tighter regulations on banks, but even that's a little mixed. So bear with me here. Politico notes that Vance is a co-sponsor of a bill to crack down on credit card swipe fees, which by the way, actually helps businesses, particularly small businesses, right? Because they're the ones who pay those credit card swap fees. He has co-sponsored another designed to discourage banks from limiting services to energy producers, firearms, businesses, and other interests that Republicans accuse some lenders of discriminating against. So that actually has been a strategy of some activists, let's say activists who are working on climate legislation, who want more action on climate change. What they'll do is they'll pressure the banks to stop giving loans, or they'll to stop investing in. No?
Yeah, so that does happen sometimes, but that's not the main thing. The main thing is that banks now provide investment vehicles for people who don't want to damage the planet. So what they say is, if you want, you don't care about the planet, then we have this thing that you can bundle that you can invest in, and you could make X return on that, right? But we have one that's clean, that doesn't go into fossil fuels or gun companies, et cetera. So you don't have to sacrifice your morals to make money, but it still makes a really good return. And so a lot of people, and so what they're doing is they're offering something that the market wants. They're providing a different service. They're not cutting you off from investing in fossil fuel companies. But the oil companies go, I don't like that. That means a certain portion of the banks are at least providing an alternative that isn't investing in us. No, our corrupt politicians, go make them stop that. What part of the free market tells a company what kind of investment product they can put together and can't put together? Don't let them get it twisted. They're making it seem like the Democrats are saying you're not allowed to invest in fossil fuel companies or gun companies. That's not at all true. That you can invest in anyone you like. These are just investment vehicles that say we're not putting your money in that. And if you want to choose that, that's exactly what the free market is. So that is an anti-capitalist position. And the credit card swipe fees is a really interesting story because it's hilarious. On that one, you have Democrats and Republicans on one side and Democrats and Republicans on the other side. You know why? Because the credit card companies are bribing certain senators and Congress people to include the fees, and the businesses that have to pay the fees are bribing the other senators and congressmen to not have the fees. So we have a bribe off on credit card swipe fees.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.